A couple of things that we want you to keep in mind as you go through this journey to change your health and fitness is one, to start with where you're at and to build from there. One of the things that we tend to do when we're trying to make any change to our health and fitness is we want to be kind of at the ideal level right now. And so we try to do the ideal workout or the ideal nutrition plan or the ideal sleep plan or whatever it is. And we end up doing too much and overextending ourselves and burning out. And so it's not that those principles are bad, and it's not that we don't want to build up to where we can perform a more ideal amount of exercise or get better quality and quantity of sleep or any of those things. But what we want to do is build sustainable habits so that when motivation is low, we can lean on the scaffolding of our habits to carry us through and to help us to make those changes. And so, what I tell people is in health and fitness, the application is there's many ways to apply the principles, but the basic principles are few and relatively simple. And so when you learn a principle or when you dive into the patterns, right? Your activity pattern, your sleep pattern, your eating pattern, your stress pattern, your happiness pattern. What are small, simple, sustainable ways that you can begin to implement those things? How can you implement those principles in ways that work for you? And so let's use nutrition as an example. And so for some people, counting their macros works great, right? They have an app, I can just do that every day, it's super easy to track, and they can be consistent with that. For another person, they're like, you want me to track stuff like that? There's no way, that just sounds terrible, that sounds awful. But you know what? I found out that intermittent fasting works really well for me. When I just have this window to eat, I tend to handle things a lot better. What does that look like for you? What's sustainable for you? Taking the meat of that principle and then applying it to your life and to your lifestyle, and then building again on those small, simple, sustainable habits. Because what really matters in the long run is what can I stick to for the longest period of time. And so when you're thinking about implementing those different things, ask yourself the question, is this something that I see myself doing for an extended period of time? Can I imagine myself doing this in a year, in 5 years, in 10 years? Now, for sure, there's some times where we've got to make a change that's a little bit more extensive or a little bit more intense for a short period of time. But what we should be looking to do is how do I, again, develop those habits and behaviors that are sustainable over decades. Because when we take a long-term approach to health and fitness, it helps us to take advantage of the effect of compounding, right? Those changes, those small and simple sustainable habits build on one another, and our health improves by wider margins as time goes on. And so, again, ask yourself, what can I stick to in the easiest way with the least resistance for the long period of time? Start with those habits and then build from there.